Water is now traded on Wall Street. Not oil, not gold, water. It has futures contracts and investors. It now has a price, the source of life, bought and sold like a fund. How did something considered sacred become a financial asset? And more importantly, who profits from it? For thousands of years, water built civilizations. It shaped nations. It determined where people would live and where they would die. Water was power, but it was never meant to be owned, until now. Today, water appears on trading screens. It is indexed, it is priced, it is speculated upon, contracts are written, markets are created, investors take positions, and a new chapter in financial history quietly begins. This is not just about water. This is about the financialization of life itself, and it changes everything. Water, the source of life, the foundation upon which civilizations were born and empires were built. For thousands of years it was considered sacred, something meant to be shared, something that could not be bargained over. The oldest hidden witness of human history, the silent reason behind the first civilizations, the invisible cause of the first conflicts. And now, it exists as an asset class on the screens of Wall Street, priced, divided into contracts, transformed into derivatives, and traded as a speculative instrument. This is precisely why this story matters. If water is the most valuable source of life, why is it now bought and sold on Wall Street? Because history's greatest transformations often begin in places no one is truly aware of, places no one is really looking at. Most people see water as something that simply flows from a tap, flowing through rivers, accumulating in lakes, irrigating fields, and sustaining civilizations as a powerful natural resource. Although it is perceived as a quiet part of life, it is consciously accepted as something that is always there. But this is only the visible surface of the sphere, the shell itself. The hidden truths lie inside. Today, water has gone beyond being merely a natural resource and has become a financialized power. And like everything else that becomes financialized, it changes hands silently and without notice. If we stop here and think, what is money? For years, we were told that money emerged from barter, that barter was difficult, people could not meet their needs, and therefore money was invented. This narrative appears innocent and simple, and it even sounds logical. But there is a truth that is incorrect within it. Money did not emerge to make trade easier for people. Money emerged for states to feed their armies, collect taxes, and sustain their authority. What kept an empire standing was not markets. What kept an empire standing was a disciplined army. And what kept that army standing was a payment system that everyone was forced to accept. The state needed a tool to forcibly impose this cycle because it had to feed its armies, pay its soldiers, and collect taxes from its people. From the very first day, money existed as an infrastructure of control, not as a tool of freedom. Today, capitalism is presented to us through the language of freedom. Competition, entrepreneurship, individual success, equality of opportunity. But when we look at the near stage of history, we see that capitalism began not with freedom, but with control. The first major capital structures were companies that behaved like states. They waged wars, formed their own armies, seized ports unjustly, and took control of trade routes. Capitalism was not founded as a romantic idea, but through accounting ledgers and the use of force. And here, history's first great rhyme is born. Those who hold power have always controlled resources as well. Resources were not gold or silver as we commonly think. They were land, grain, and always water, because whoever controlled water also directed the flow of life. This can be clearly seen when we look at ancient civilizations. If the Nile did not flood, Egypt collapsed. If canals were blocked in Mesopotamia, cities starved. If aqueducts failed in Rome, order collapsed. Yet water was never priced on a stock exchange screen. Because water was not a commodity, it was a destiny. Now let us listen to the rhyme of history. As ancient Rome expanded, its armies grew, expenses increased, Maps widened, cities multiplied, and infrastructure became more costly. The solution was simple, yet deadly. Silver was reduced, silently diluting value. As a result, prices rose, trust disappeared, and society began to decay from within. Today, there's no silver in our pockets, but the same thing is happening. Value is being diluted. If money is a belief system, water is now seen as the new collateral of that belief. On Wall Street screens, water is now defined as the most scarce asset of the future. Futures contracts, derivatives, and funds enter the picture. Water is now traded like gold, like oil. But the major problem here is that when other valuable assets are depleted, alternatives can be found. When water is depleted, life itself ends. The financial world places environmental summits, climate agreements, and political rhetoric on the stage, and cameras focus there. But behind the scenes, a hidden structure continues to operate, one without soldiers or tanks, where no one sees it as an occupation. Funds, contracts, speculation, companies purchasing water sources, funds acquiring water rights along with agricultural land, and structures that control dams, treatment plants, and distribution networks. At this point, it is necessary to recall what Britain did in India. India was governed not by soldiers, but by accounting. Through what was called the drain of wealth, local resources were slowly centralized. Raw materials were bought cheaply, processed goods sold expensively, and people were impoverished through taxation. Over the years, no one attributed the collapse of a civilization to being plundered. Today, water is advancing along a similar path, silently, under technical contracts. When we consider hedge funds, we must understand that the financialization of water is not an environmental issue, but a financial one. Funds do not predict water scarcity, they price water scarcity. And like everything that is priced, it becomes open to speculation. When expectations of drought arise in a region, funds take positions, agricultural prices rise, and food becomes more expensive. People say nature is just like this. But behind the scenes, bets have already been placed. This is why water is Wall Street's new gold, because water is both rare and indispensable things are the strongest tools of control. History has always been written this way. Controlling grain meant controlling the people. Controlling money meant controlling the state. Now, whoever controls water will control the future. These events raise a question. If we believe money is a belief system, if the financial world is a theater, and if history continues to rhyme, then who owns the water that is our source of value? The state, you, or invisible investors whose presence cannot be seen? Financial literacy here is not a luxury. It is a means of protection, the ability to see behind the stage. Because those who cannot see the stage pay the price of the game. And in this game, the price is not just money. The price is life. For the system to function smoothly, the financialization of water finds little place in mainstream narratives. It is presented as a technical detail and legitimized under the name of market efficiency. Although the financialization of water is presented today as a new phenomenon, it is actually a modern reflection of a very old human reflex. Abstracting what is vital, measuring it, dividing it, and finally imprisoning it within a controllable system. In the past, control was achieved through fortresses built along riverbanks. Today, it is achieved through legal texts, data centers, and algorithms. Only the methods change, the intentions remain the same. Water no longer nourishes only the land, it now nourishes balance sheets as well. The flow rate of a river, the capacity of a dam, the reserve of groundwater, now appear not only in engineering reports, but also in investment presentations. What was once awaited through rain prayers is now discussed through risk analyses, scenario tables, and probability calculations. And when this language changes, perception changes with it. People begin to think of water not as a right, but as a service. What is a service has a price. What has a price has an owner, and what has an owner changes hands. This is where the rupture deepens. Because when the price of water rises, this is not just an economic data point. It is a signal that affects a society's nutrition, settlement patterns, migration movements, and even political stability. In the dusty pages of history, behind major collapses, rebellions, and migrations, there was often one reason: the denial of access to resources. Today, that denial is not carried out with swords, but with pens and contractual clauses. People may not immediately notice when usage rights over a resource change. Taps continue to flow, fields are irrigated for a while longer, cities maintain their routines. But over time, prices rise, quotas fall, and priorities shift. First water is allocated to industry, then to large agricultural enterprises, and finally to individuals. This is not presented as a crisis. It is described as a regulation, because language is the most effective way to soften reality. The financial world uses this language masterfully, covering the reality of expensive living with phrases like, resources are being used more efficiently. It never says access is becoming harder. It says demand is being balanced. As these phrases are repeated, people attribute everything happening to nature and arrive at the conclusion that it is inevitable. Yet nature does not sign contracts. Nature does not conduct installment-based transactions. Nature does not produce price signals. All of these are human-made, and every system made by humans is governed by other humans. This is why the financialization of water is not merely an economic topic. It is a transfer of power, a silent transfer of power, a transfer that is very concrete, yet invisible to the eye. When a country's access to water weakens, it experiences a major rupture. The devaluation of its currency or the weakening of its army cannot even be compared to the loss of access to water, because thirst does not recognize ideology, and this will make future conflicts very different from past ones. Flags, slogans, and ideologies fade into the background. Resources come to the forefront. And among all resources, water is always the quietest, yet the most decisive. Today, many regions of the world are being drawn into this system. Agricultural lands are being purchased, water rights are being transferred, and local populations continue their lives without understanding the language of the contracts. The lack of alternatives to water gradually reduces options. This is why the financialization of water, while presented as the insurance of the future, actually turns into the hostage of the future. What is taken hostage is not just a resource, but life itself. And at this point, history once again rhymes. In the past, societies were controlled through debt. Today, societies are controlled through resources. Just as debt created invisible chains, water creates similar chains. But these chains are not rusty. They are digital, not visible, silent, and therefore extremely dangerous. Silent chains are carried without being noticed, and people still believe that the water flowing in their homes is permanent. But throughout history, every flow has had an end. Rivers changed course, empires collapsed, systems fell apart, and the same question always remained: who controlled what was vital? Today, asking this question is not a search for a conspiracy. It is a matter of awareness. Because awareness means moving from being a spectator in this theater to learning how to read the stage. And when you read the stage, you see this: water is not just a flowing substance. It is the mirror of power, governance, and the balance of priorities. Whoever controls water does not only control today, but also the management of tomorrow. As long as water continues to flow, the struggle for power will continue. And if water becomes an asset, the real question is not who owns it, but who will be left without it. The curtain rises again after every closing, roles are redistributed, but the play remains the same. And in this play there is a deep line between those who are aware and those who are not. Some watch the stage, while others try to read the script written behind the curtain, and the difference between them determines the future. If you like this story, I invite you to subscribe to my channel.